Saxon Math 7-6, Lesson 85. Fractions and decimals. Okay, we've talked about this language that we're learning. Well, it's three languages. It's fractions, decimals, and percents. It's three ways of expressing the same ideas. We've been doing all kinds of work this year, guys, on improving our ability to speak each language and then to translate back and forth, right? And today's lesson is going to answer the question, what happens if we're doing, say, addition, multiplication, any subtraction or division, any one of those four basic operations, and we combine fractions and decimals. Here's an example of what I'm talking about. The first problem says add 0.5 and 1/4. What in the world? This is a fraction, this is a decimal. Do you see what I'm saying? We've got one problem that includes both types of numbers. What the heck? Well, I'll tell you how this works. What we do is we either make them both fractions or we make them both decimals. And while in the long run, you'll be able to choose that for yourself, and I have opinions on that, but we'll get to that later. Right now, John's going to tell us which he wants us to do. So in this example, add 0.5 and 1.4. Write the answer as a fraction and as a decimal. Okay, so he wants us to come up with both types of answers. You'll see in the future he often tells us just one or the other, but right now he's making us work. So we're going to express them first both as fractions. Now, for one of them, it's easy, isn't it? Right. Okay. We're half done with the problem and we haven't even started it. Oh, I love it when it goes fast. But we have to figure out how to express 0.5 as a fraction. Well, the first thing I remind myself is problem or position. So this can easily be written as 5/10. Okay? 5 in the tenths place, 5/10. Okay, this can be reduced, right? 5 goes into both of those numbers. So I can reduce that to 1/2. All right, I like it. That is much better. But we're trying to add it to 1/4. So we need matching denominators, don't we? So now I'm going to multiply this back up times 2 to make it 2/4. Now I can add it to 1/4, and my answer is 3/4. Make sense? We switch it to a fraction, the easiest way that jumps in our heads, and then adjusting the fraction until the denominator matches. Okay, cool. Now we're trying to work it in decimals, the very same problem. Now that means I have to change 1/4 into a decimal number. I know that if I can get my denominator to equal 10, 100, 1000, something like that, then it's easy to switch it to a decimal. So this occurs to me if I multiply the bottom and the top by 25, I'll get 25 over 100, which is the same as 0.25, right? Those go into the hundredths place, right? 25, this is the 1/10 place, this is the 100th place, all right? Maybe your brain can jump all the way from 0.5 to 2/4 or from 1/4 to 0.25. If your brain can jump there faster than I'm showing you, that's fine. But I'm showing you a longer way of thinking it through. We can put the 0 there just to make them match. And then we can go, okay, this needs 2 decimal places to add. And now we add these, 5, 7. .75 and 3/4 have the same value. And so we're happy with the way that turned out. Make sense? Okay, example 2. We have 3 examples in all. Example 85.2 says 1/2 plus 0.3, and this time we only want the decimal answer. Since I've already got the decimals over in this row, I'm just going to add my decimals over here. just so that it's consistent. One thing I will tell you is when you're doing these problems, give yourself enough room to work. I like to stack them because it gives me more room to work sideways. So I recommend you do my answer line here as well. I recommend stacking, and then now that we're only switching to one, you've got plenty of room across your page to make that work. 0.3 is already in decimal format, so I just copy that straight across. 1/2 into a decimal place. Okay, 1/2, if I can make that have a 10 or a 100 or a 1000 on the bottom, and I know that I can get 2 to go into 10 5 times. So 5/10 then can go straight into decimal land like so, right? Because that's the 1/10 position. So I can write this as 0.5. Again, you can put the 0 in front of the decimal if you want, or you can leave it off if you want. You can add zeros at the end if you want. There's no need for them here because the forms of our numbers are exactly the same. And so this becomes 0.8, and that's our final answer. Yay! One more, example 85.3. This time we have not an addition, but a multiplication problem. So I'm going to write it as it's written. And this time we want a fraction answer. My columns have sort of evaporated. So I'm starting a new column here. We want a fraction answer. Okay, that means I want to change this decimal to be a fraction. This is in the tenths place. So I can just write this as 3/10. My denominators don't have to match because I am multiplying, I'm not adding. So life is easier when we multiply fractions, and all I have to do is multiply across the top and the bottom, but I can see, oh, let's reduce before we do. And our final answer is 1/10. Okay? And then when you look at the practice problems for this lesson, let me squeeze my book in here. Subtraction, multiplication, division, which will work the very same way. It says write these as decimals and write these as fractions. Subtraction, multiplication, division. Okay? Give those a shot. We didn't actually do a division problem, so if that confuses you at all, is tell your mom to send me a message saying Jojo or Joel needs help with lesson 85, practice problem C, or practice problem F, whichever one you need help with. All you have to do is tell your mom to send me a message, tell her which problem. I will write it out picture back of how I solved that problem. It won't be awkward or weird if you ask me a question, I promise. Okay? That's lesson 85.